Welcome to another scriptural study. In this scriptural calendar and astronomical study, we will be focusing on a topic known as the chaos of 365, 364, 360, and 354 day calendar clubs. The purpose and intent of this scriptural study was to provide visuals and information from a scriptural and astronomical standpoint for those that are suffering the chaos and pain from these particular calendar clubs, and as well to provide information for those that are still imprisoned in them, either consciously and or unconsciously. Yes, what is this chaos that is from world religions? That is encapsulated in these non-scriptural annual day counts from these calendar clubs, again, that are non-scriptural. But before we get started, let's do a little bit of an etymological search to find out what the words chaos actually mean. In the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition is a state of utter disorder and confusion, either by an individual or group of individuals. And this obviously would reflect the word clubs. As we look at this a little further, many of the Berean study groups that we participate with understand chaos in the form of chaos engineering, or what is known as the art of breaking things purposely. But what are these world religions with these non-scriptural annual day counts in their non-scriptural calendar clubs breaking purposely? What is going on here? They are attempting to break all three witnesses that work in perfect harmony to tell time, more specifically, for signs of those times as it relates to the appointed times of YaHUaH and those associated signs that show up in those days and years. Again, this is not complicated. People that do go out to study the Word in all 4 night watches are aware that up until the 4th watch of the night, yes, at that dawn, the first light, is where the full moon greets the sun, and where the moon rules with the stars. If we wait till sunrise, we will miss the knowledge from the stars. As well, by following this method of all 3 witnesses of light, with all of the full light, so to speak, it provides us a prophetic word made more certain, which we do well to heed as a light that shines in a dark place, until the day dawns, yes, first light, and that the morning star then indeed can rise in our hearts, because we will be able to visualize it. In fact, we'll be able to film and photograph it. So again, calendar clubs do not promote this type of scriptural and astronomical approach. They practice what is known as chaos engineering, which is the art of breaking things purposely. Again, let's look at this a little bit more succinctly. What's the definition of the word club? Ironically, and not coincidentally, the definition is as follows. Number 1, a heavy, usually tapering staff, especially of wood, wielded as a weapon, a stick or bat to hit things with. How many times have we heard from these calendar clubs, "You will perish for lack of knowledge"? It's such a shame. Number 2, the definition of a club is an association of persons for some common object, usually jointly supported, and meeting periodically. Number 3, it's a group identified by some common characteristic. I find no irony in the fact that the Merriam-Webster uses nations in the nuclear club. Kind of fitting for the folks that practice the art of breaking things purposely, no? And finally, number 4, it's the meeting place of a club. Think about this for a moment, because when you get into calendar studies and the joy of comparing all man-made calendars as compared to the 3 witnesses of light that YaHUaH provides, you start to find out these calendar clubs are actually on roads that all lead to Rome. So, we've covered this topic in previous scriptural study videos entitled The Joy of Comparing Calendars, and many Bereans have asked us to go into more detail. So this lengthy study will attempt to do just that, and focuses on what is truly a true scriptural year. So again, the chaos of 365, 364, 360, and 354 annual day counts are non-scriptural. Regrettably, there are many calendar clubs out there that will say otherwise. So as we go through this study, it is imperative that you stop the video at any time to further focus, so ensure that your computer screens are on full view mode, again to focus on the scriptural and astronomical, let alone etymological information being shared. So again, quick review. What is chaos? It's a state of utter disorder and confusion. Furthermore, what is a club? It is a heavy, usually tapering staff, especially of wood, wielded as a weapon. And it's an association of persons for some common object, usually jointly supported and meeting periodically. Again, there is no irony in this definition. So again, it's a meeting place of a club, and as we will soon see, regrettably, in this world, all roads do indeed lead to Rome. So chaos in the world of research with Bereans who are striving to become noble have a complete understanding that chaos is a state of utter disorder and confusion. As well, the intent behind this chaos and confusion is for control. And again, control is nothing more than an attempt to direct the behavior of a person and to cause a person to do what you want, or what an organization from this world wants people to do. Does the whole world follow this beast? Well, this study will explore that under these incorrect counts that are promoted to this day from calendar clubs. And finally, in regards to control, time is part of that, but that timing piece from world religions, especially the Second Babylon, is always associated to the world's monetary system. So let's explore this as well as it relates to the definition of control and the intent of this beast. Because in this scriptural study, once again, we will be reviewing the 3 witnesses of light that our Father of Lights provides to provide the order that the world does not explore and/or are even interested in. Because the world isn't interested in the fact that our Father of Lights is not an almighty one of disorder, but of peace, as in all assemblies of the set-apart ones. And those set-apart ones, yes, Bereans who are striving to become noble, believe that every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of Lights, with whom there is no change nor shadow of turning. And this is why we believe that his Son, his firstborn, his only begotten Son, created at the beginning of time, is also known as a wonderful counselor, a strong almighty one, and the Father of continuity, Prince of Peace. Continuity, perpetuity, continually. So we're going to get into these scriptural words such as Talmud to understand why the Father of Lights and what he provides, there is no disorder in it. Again, The definition of disorder is to disturb the order of, to disturb the regular or normal functions of something. Again, a state of confusion. Again, there's no irony that the definition from the Oxford Dictionary states, tiresome days of mess and disorder. So as we go through this study, a tiresome mess of days and disorder from these non-scriptural calendar clubs that we're to come out of. So again, this chaos basically exists in a very high level view anyways, as we can see here. Here are 4 things that are in commonality with the chaos of these 365, 364, 360, and 354 day or annual day calendar clubs. 1, they all ignore one and are all of the witnesses of light availed to us to tell time, as we can read in Bereshith or Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 16, etc. Number 2, they base their start or spring of the year, whether now, today, or propose sometime in the future, that the year will be based on the vernal equinox. Again, they chase shadows and portions of darkness. We will explore that in this scriptural study. Number 3, they promote non-scriptural incorrect day starts. They try to get you to focus on sunset, midnight, or sunrise, and that's it. So we're going to explore that as well. And finally, number 4, this disorder of things, they try to get you to promote non-scriptural or incorrect month starts. They ignore all 4 night watches, especially the 4th watch, and as such, they promote chaos with man-made theories that new moon days are possibly irrelevant, and as such will possibly promote that the Moedim are irrelevant, and or will have no concern when others say that the scriptural appointed times, or Moedim, can be on different days in different locations on earth. So all of these 4 non-scriptural annual day proposals practice this high level, or things in common, these 4 things. And as we go through the study, we'll explore why this creates a state of confusion. Yes, a tiresome days of mess and disorder. They disturb the order of the Almighty Father of lights. They disturb his 3 witnesses of light that are regulated and function normally together as one to tell time. As well, we will jump into why most are not aware that it is a man-made lie that there are 24 hours in a day. There is something else going on here as it relates to what truly is a scriptural day that is made by YaHUaH, and it's copywritten. No one can manipulate it. They can ignore it, but you can't manipulate it. And we'll explore this as well in this scriptural study. Finally, in all of those 4 common things, none of those annual day count proposals match the writings of Moshe. We'll also explore that in this scriptural study. So let's get started with the 3 witnesses of light, yes, those perfect gifts from above, to see and prove that there is no change with these lights, the order of them, and there is no shadow of turning with them as well. And how following the celestial clock and calendar of YaHUaH is proof of an individual or group of people who do indeed will do the desire of the Father who is in the heavens. And that determines who is indeed the family members of the Messiah YaHushua, as we can read in Matthew chapter 12, verse 50. As compared to what is going on with the chaos of these non-scriptural annual day calendar clubs. So, without further ado, we're going to go into this in great detail with 12 categories that are scriptural. And we're going to compare these 12 categories as it relates to the sun, moon, and stars with the Roman Catholic Church, yes, the mother of all movements, and how it has influenced the 364, the 360, and 354-day annual calendar clubs. Because all of those calendar clubs are forced to intercalate. And we're going to get into this and the huge impact this has at proving why they are non-scriptural. Because YaHUaH is in control, not man. YaHUaH intercalates, not man. So as we go through this, we're going to focus on 12 categories scripturally and astronomically, as backed up by the scriptural etymology, that it is only YaHUaH that is in control of his three witnesses of light, not man. So, there is indeed chaos from these calendar clubs. Let's go explore and research why. Starting with category 1, which comes from the scriptural passages of YaHUaH, or Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23, and the Psalms, or Tehillim, chapter 104, verse 19. Starting with the mother of all movements, yes, the calendar club of Rome. Rome has started with this chaos. They have mastered the art of breaking things purposely, and why they are known as the mother of all movements. Yes, all calendar clubs hidden in world religions. This is very easy to prove that the meeting place of all clubs are on the road or roads that lead to Rome. This is the mother of all movements, the foundation of non-scriptural calendar clubs. This is a 365-day calendar club or movement. And we can prove it. Why? Because they do not agree that YaHUaH, Father of Lights, made the mood for appointed times. And they do not promote each month, the new moon anyways, as the first day of every month. And as such, no one on earth, as a result, numbers from Sabbath to Sabbath correctly. And as such, all flesh is not coming to worship at this present time before YaHUaH. People are actually worshiping this beast, and most are unconscious of it, but some are conscious, and we're going to deal with that under these 4 categories at a high level, under the 12 scriptural elements. Yes, Rome chases shadows and gets everyone else to do it with their forms of vernal equinox worship, as we will see in a moment. So again, let's take a look at this in a greater detail, because none of us are obligated to follow Egypt. This obelisk in the center of Rome, in Vatican Square, is right from Egypt. Caligula brought this in. And if you do some research on the Emperor Caligula, you'll understand why this is a further problem. We are not obligated to be pagans, like in Stonehenge, to follow shadows and portions of darkness. Let's explore this a little further. Because if you take the Gregorian calendar, the 365-day count on its own, it will not match the writings of Moshe. Because again, day 1 of every month is not new moon day to them. And as such, there's no such thing as from Sabbath to Sabbath under the criteria that the moon is made for appointed times. And as such, the count to Sabbaths are then ruined, or chaos is created so that no one is aware of this. They've done an excellent job as being the mother of all movements, getting everyone off base and giving everyone a thought that they can change the perfect order of Moshe's writings as proven by the sun, moon, and stars, and established by the sun, moon, and stars. Again, a day is not 24 hours. And this is what this beast promotes. We're going to explore this further as the study continues. The mother of all movements, the Roman Catholic Church, does not believe that there is a Sabbath. they teach a seventh day, and it's not really a Sabbath. People can actually work on it. And there is no repercussions that are preached from this particular beast about that. And they do not share that, since then it remains for some to enter into this rest. They help with the disobedience and chaos, yes, the disorder. And as well, they do not really understand the definition of a certain day. New Moon Day is one day for everyone on earth, and as such, all Sabbaths are on the same day, and the feast days are all on the same day, and the prophetic counts, of course, would be on the same day. This has been put into place or has come into being from the foundation of the world, but this beast does not preach that. And the associated non-scriptural day counts also do this as well. Let's find out why. Some of you right now may be saying, wait a minute, aren't you the channel that promotes many of the writings of the emissary YaHUaH, known today as the Apostle Paul? And we do. And we have, just in this one slide, proof of 84 Sabbath witnesses from the emissary YaHUaH that he did indeed know the true Sabbath, and he did indeed know the true new moon day. Please take the time to review and study out these scriptural passages to find out why YaHUaH is a true emissary. He also knew, based on the sun, moon, and stars, of when to travel to the Festival of Weeks, YaHUaH. He knew the sun, moon, and star movement so well that he knew when it was safe to travel to YaHUaH from Ephesus. He knew that the Mediterranean was a very dangerous place to travel in the first, second, and third months, because there were certain stars that determined, scriptural stars at that determined when it was safe to travel on the open seas in the Mediterranean to Jerusalem. Again, we've covered this in many past scriptural study videos. And we continue to take film and photograph footage of what YaHUaH was aware of with the signs of YaHUaH in regards to a sign being a complete sign with the sun, moon, and stars, all the way up to the dawn. Yes, the commencement of the fourth watch, first light, if you will, where you can visualize all of the movements of the sun, full moon, and the stars. And if you go to sunrise only, as we've shared for the last 7 years, you'll miss some of that, and some more disorder and chaos will be created from that mindset. But again, let's study this out further. Again, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, with whom there is no change nor shadow of turning. Since the foundation of the world, this has been put into place. It hasn't changed. But there are those in this world that'll say, no, it's not perfect. Those gifts from above are not perfect, even though the taught ones said differently. Even though the Almighty One is not an Almighty One of disorder, but of order that was created and had come into being since the foundation of the world. So again, 365-day calendar clubs, or the mother of all movements, ensure that everyone on earth ignores Psalm 104:19 and YaHUaH chapter 6 verse 23. Why? Again, follow the money. Civil calendars worldwide, at least 168 of the world's countries use the Gregorian calendar as their sole civil calendar as of 2021. 5 countries have not adopted the Gregorian calendar: Afghanistan and Iran, which use the solar Hijri calendar. But these same countries use it for their monetary system. Please study this out. The mother of all movements is a beast, and the world marvels after the beast and follows it. Who controls the money controls the world. And how do we know this? Well, people don't want this all over the world to be in place. They don't want the new moon being new moon. They don't want to have to worship from new moon to new moon and Sabbath to Sabbath. Take a look at an example from the past, as we can read in the book of Amos, chapter 8, verse 5, saying, "When does the new moon pass so that we all sell grain, and the Sabbath so that we trade our wheat, to make the upha small and the shekel large, and to falsify the scales by deceit?" This world religious movement, starting with the 365-day calendar club, ensured that the entire world would ignore new moons and Sabbaths, all because of trade, which anyone can verify here and now, today, just as it was in the past. And you'll be horrified to find out what's being proposed for the future. We'll get to this as well. Again, they ignore that the sun, moon, and stars were come into being from the foundation of the world, and that there is indeed a rest, and why, as the apostle or emissary Shaul stated. So then, since then, it remains for some to enter into it. Most will not enter into it because of disobedience. They will ignore the certain day. One day, not days in the plural sense. And if there were other days on earth, he would not have spoken of another day after that. There is no other day. There is one new moon day, one Sabbath, one set of feast days, and they're not different in different places on earth, like some promote. Again, the mother of all movements has placed that thought of disobedience into the minds of men or people, if you will. So, that's the Roman Catholic non-scriptural system. And if you understand this system, it has to intercalate. Well, what is intercalation? The definition of intercalate is a transitive verb. It means to insert something such as a day in a calendar. What? Yes, we are not to intercalate. And some of you may not find the irony in this at this moment in time in history. The term intercalation in chemistry is the reversible inclusion or insertion of a molecule or ion into layered materials with layered structures. Examples are found in graphite and transition metal dichlorogenides. Now, if you understand what this is all about, it should be very relevant to you what this means in this day and age. Because if you understand that, you're not supposed to play around with the sun, moon, and stars. You don't insert anything. You don't take anything away. YaHUaH is in control. And this is why intercalation is only done by men. And if you understand viruses and where some of them come from, it is known as the science of gain of function, where men, regrettably, with ill will mindsets, insert certain things into viruses to create other types of viruses. It is indeed the hall of shame. It is something that is chaotic and is presently creating disorder in this earth now, just like those that play around with the Father of Lights, sun, moon, and stars. So, in the mother of all movements, the 365-day movement, they are forced to intercalate because their calendar is wrong. It doesn't match up to what the sun, moon, and stars actually do, and thus they got an added day every 4 years. And they call that a leap year and a leap day. You're not supposed to do that. YaHUaH is in control, not man. So, how does the 365-day movement affected the 364-day movement? Let's explore this in category 1 as well. We were introduced to the 364-day club movement quite long ago, actually, and it's all based on a misconception of one passage in the Book of Enoch. And they don't read the rest of the passages, let alone the rest of the passages from the Book of Jubilees, etc. And as such, they discount that the moon was made for appointed times, and as such, they do not worship from Sabbath to Sabbath correctly. In fact, there is a plethora of misconceptions and different movements from 364-day annual clubs. And there's tons of them. And they all have different versions, and they all start their year differently based on the vernal equinox and the various ways they do it. But most of all, these day clubs, 364-day clubs, exist on Facebook. And we'll explore this now because we were first introduced to the 364-day club movement back in 2004 by an article by John P. Pratt. And they called it the Pentacontad calendar. And basically, it worked like this. The calendar is described as dividing the year into 7 seasons of 50 days each, equating to 350 days, with 2 extra weeks inserted, there's that intercalation again, at the middle and end of the year. So again, very disheartening. They're still obligated to the sun, moon, and stars and what it does, and they play with it. And you're not supposed to do that, as we've seen. So again, there are reasons you don't intercalate. You don't insert something into the calendar of YaHUaH or take away. No different than you play with creation. You don't insert something into the genome models of creation because all hell will break loose. But let's explore this a little further. In Wikipedia, you could read the basic commonality of how this works. It divided the year into 4 seasons of exactly 13 weeks each. Each season consisted of 2 30-day months, followed by one 31-day month, with the 31st day ending the season, so that Enoch's year consisted of exactly 364 days. So again, 2 months of 30-day months, and that third month in that quarter would add a day, intercalate, if you will. And they did that consecutively for each quarter. The challenge was that at the end, they would be off by a day and a quarter approximately, and they would have to adjust for that in time, no different than the Gregorian system. And as we said earlier, the mother of all movements put that thought into people's heads that they could do what they want with the sun, moon, and stars. Welcome to intercalation, or the insertion of something into creation, what you're not supposed to do. It goes on further. You'll see then other movements take Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 32 and 38, which do indeed state there are 364 days in a year. The problem is they don't say why. And we're going to get into this. And again, there's that ugly spring equinox, which resets the annual cycle. And again, they add extra days, even with this model. But again, we're not obligated to follow what Egypt does and chasing shadows and portions of darkness, let alone be pagans like the folks in Stonehenge. Are we not to come out of Egypt and all forms of paganism? Let's look into this a little deeper, shall we? Because the 364-day movement is not aware that there's no such thing as a 24-hour day. That's man-made. And if they understood the writings of Hanok with the 364 days as repeated in the Book of Jubilees, then they would understand what the actual sun, moon, and stars actually do to tell time, which YaHUaH made at the foundation of the world. So let's review what's actually being stated. In Hanok chapter 74, verse 12, it states, "And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly with perfect justice in 364 days. The Book of Jubilees also says, reckoning 364 days. So what's going on here? What's actually happening between the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees? Well, here it is. Ursa Major, the 7-star cluster known in Job chapter 38, verse 32, as the bear, goes around the fixed north star in a counterclockwise motion every day in 86,164 seconds per day. That equates to 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4.09 seconds per day. If you multiply that and round it off to 23.934 hours, and again, we're not rounding off, that's what it equates to in real time, 23.934 hours per day. If you multiply that by what Hanok said was a solar year, which approximately was 365.25, that equates to 8,741.89 hours. And that's what gives you the 364 days annually. That's what the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch were talking about. And you can go test and prove this for yourself daily in a solar annual day year of what the scriptures provide, 365 and a quarter. It's actually 365.24 plus plus plus, which is 0.97 if you really want to get into the math. So, Hanok stated that a year, a solar year, was 365 and a quarter days. And he also stated that a lunar cycle was 354 days. But again, the 364-day movement excludes all these writings, let alone does not go outside and test and prove that this actually happens. They don't number their days. So, as a result, they get all of this wrong and they find themselves intercalating because their calendar is not matched up to what YaHUaH, our Father of Lights, provides with his 3 witnesses of light. They take away and they're forced to insert, regrettably. Again, they also promote an incorrect day start. It's based on the vernal equinox here and now. The problem is you can't basically measure an equinox with the human eye. You need a man-made device. Welcome to Egypt. Welcome to what Rome did. Stonehenge. The archaeological record is proof. Here's another problem with the 364-day calendar clubs. They look at the Book of Jubilees, but they eliminate this passage in chapter 6, verse 23. And on the new moon of the 1st month, and on the new moon of the 4th month, and on the new moon of the 7th month, and on the new moon of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a testimony forever. They eliminate this entirely. And regrettably, they then don't understand what Hanok is truly talking about, and our Jubilees chapter 6, verse 32. How can we prove this? Again, they eliminate chapter 6, verse 23, and only hold on to chapter 6, verse 32, and thus making this null and void. Again, they do not know what a true day is scripturally. They don't know when a day starts properly, and they ignore the 4th watch. They ignore all 4 night watches, especially when a day truly starts at the dawn, at first light, when you can see the sun, moon, and stars. If you go to sunrise, obviously you lose the 3rd witness, which is the stars. This is how they're linked to the 365 movement. Again, the Book of Jubilees is clear. It tells you that there are 4 divisions in a year, which are aligned to the seasons. And it tells you the days of remembrance with the new moon, the full moon, first day of the 1st month, first day of the 4th month, first day of the 7th month, and first day of the 10th month. We can test and prove this in creation. It exists, but they ignore it, like many others. And as such, they don't understand Job or Eob, chapter 38, verse 32, because YaHUaH is telling Job, hey, do you bring out the constellations in its season, or do you lead the bear, Ursa Major, with its sons? And in this position, the true first day of the 1st month with the sun, moon, and stars around the second watch, around the midnight time period, we would see Ursa Major in this position. The first day of the fourth month, it would be in this position, sharing with us the true summer. And then in the autumn, the first day of the seventh month, the position of Ursa Major, again, around the second watch, around midnight, this position. And then in the winter, well after the winter solstice, in this position, the first day of the 10th month. Hallelujah, that Tehillim, or Psalms, chapter 136, verse 9, is correct, and you can verify it in creation. The moon and stars do indeed rule by night, for his kindness is everlasting. Since the foundation of the world, it hasn't changed. That's kindness. That's order, not disorder. And all of this we can test and prove. It has been tried and tested throughout the millennia. Again, for those that take the time to test and prove Scripture, as compared to those who do everything to disprove Scripture. So again, this is why the 364-day movement struggles in applying and numbering their days according to the structure and order of Moshe's writings. It's such a shame and totally unnecessary, and really reveals itself in the seventh month, when the first day of the seventh month, the day of remembrance, we blow the ram's horn. It's a set-apart gathering. There's no servile work. But again, they don't do that, and they follow unconsciously, in most cases, and regrettably, consciously in some cases, the 365 movement. They're still influenced by the mother of all movements, yes, Rome. Again, totally unnecessary, and we're going to find out now why the 360 movement is influenced by Rome as well. So let's strap in and move into this category of 360-day calendars, which hold a club to many people's heads as well. Because it is extremely easy to prove, scripturally and astronomically, how all of the 360-day annual calendar clubs are still being influenced by the mother of all movements. Yes, the second Babylon, if you will. Just as the 364-day annual calendar clubs, as we have just reviewed, are still being influenced by the mother of all movements. As it relates to these four criteria, that is extremely high level. In this portion of the presentation, we're going to go over 4 points as it relates to the 360-day calendar club movements. 1. We are going to explore ancient 360-day calendars pre-Hezekiah. 2. We are then going to discuss what exists today, post-Hezekiah. 3. We are going to explore the non-scriptural prophetic 360-day calendar mindset and why it is so troublesome. And 4. We are then going to discuss and share evidence on the horrific future 360-day calendar proposals and why and how they're already in play in the world's financial system. So let's get started with points 1 and 2. Because the majority of 360-day calendar clubs focus on a scriptural passage, yes, one scriptural passage, from the prophet YaHUaH, known today as Isaiah, chapter 38, verse 8. Quote, "See, I'm bringing the shadow on the sundial, which has gone down with the sun on the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward." They propose that the calendar is defective today as a result of this event. But in the very same verse, all of these clubs ignore how YaHUaH returned the sundial 10 degrees on the dial by which it had gone down. Let's explore this a little further. Because if you believe the sun, moon, and stars are defective here today, then you are empirically ignoring the scriptural verse from YaHUaH, now known today as James chapter 1, verse 17, because you will disagree that every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. You will not agree that the sun, moon, and stars are perfect here and now, that they have to be corrected, so to speak. And as a result, you will not believe that the Father of lights is an almighty one of order and peace from the foundation of the world. So as we get into this, we are going to talk about what YaHUaH created at the foundation of the world and how it is based in continuity, continually, continuity, which anyone can test and prove from the past and here and now, let alone into the future. So again, the sun returned 10 degrees on the dial by which it had gone down. But let's suppose for a moment that is incorrect, hypothetically. We know it's not, but let's play the game. The ones that hang their hats on Hezekiah and the portion of that one scriptural passage ignore YaHUaH, the book of Joshua, chapter 10, verses 12 through 13. Because if that did indeed happen and affected the sun, moon, and stars all the way through time, then you'd have to take into consideration these writings, where the sun stood still and the moon stopped. Thus the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens and did not hasten to go down for an entire day. So if that event was locked and loaded from the writings of Hezekiah, why are these ones ignored? Wouldn't this affect the sun, moon, and stars? But it didn't, did it? As well, the prophet Yirmiyahu, now known today as Jeremiah, in chapter 31, verses 35 and 36, state, "Thus said YaHUaH, our Father of lights, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night, who stirs up the sea, and its waves roar. YaHUaH of hosts is his name. If these laws vanish from before me," again, what laws? The laws of the sun, moon, and stars, the order of continuity that they produce from the foundation of the world. Again, if these laws vanish from before me, declares YaHUaH, then the seed of Yisrael shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. And that certainly hasn't happened. So again, these verses are kind of put on the back shelf. They don't want to talk about them. The paradigm of the 360-day mindset is obviously null and void. But there are a plethora of false claims on BitChute, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook that state, "History confirms that after the days of King Hezekiah, all calendars added 5+ days to their calendars." But is that true? Can we go back in history and learn what happened pre-Hezekiah? Can we go back before the writings of Hezekiah when he restored temple worship to find out what actually happened? Well, let's find out the date of Hezekiah, because he assumed the throne of Judah at the age of 25 and reigned for 29 years. Some writers have proposed that Hezekiah served as a co-regent with his father Ahaz for about 14 years. His sole reign is dated by William F. Albright as of 715 to 687 before the Common Era, and by Edwin R. Tail as 716-687 before the Common Era, the last 10 years being a co-regency with his son Manasseh. Okay, so we've got a date. Let's go find out what was happening with calendars, let's say in Egypt, pre-Hezekiah. Most are shocked to find out that Egypt had a 360-day cyclic calendar based in Egyptian numerology. Now again, this is not something you want to play with from a pseudo-scientific standpoint, as it has mystical relationships between a number and one or more coinciding events. It's from the paranormal, it's based on astrology, and the divine arts. So, okay, that's the first red flag. The second red flag is enormous. An Egyptian calendar consisted of 3 seasons of 120 days each, plus an intercalary month. What? Here we go again with intercalation. And it was defined with 5 additional days, treated as outside of the year proper. Each season was divided into 4 months of 30 days. Each month was divided into 3 10-day periods known as decans or decades. You can go to any museum and check out the archaeological artifacts to see this. Here in Canada, we can do the same thing, and many parts of the world you can see museums that prove that the Egyptian calendar was based of a year of 360 days, with 12 months and 3 seasons. Each month had a 3 10-day week for a total of 30 days. The last 5 days of the year corresponded to the birthdays of 5 deities: Osiris, Isis, Horus, Seth, and Nephthys. They intercalated or added 365 days. Now, if you don't believe this and you don't get outside to museums, and again, you don't test and prove what the sun, moon, and stars actually do, then at least pick up an encyclopedia. Yes, do your research, because Egyptians invented a schematized civil year of 365 days, divided into 3 seasons, each of which consisted of 4 months of 30 days. To complete the year, 5 intercalary days were added at its end, so that the 12 months were equal to 360 days, plus 5 extra days. Nothing new under the sun, is there? So these 360-day calendar clubs are acting very much like the mother of all movements. Why? Because they're forced to intercalate. Way back when, they were forced, just like the Roman Catholic Church today has to have a leap year. Why? Because they're bound by the order, the peace, the continuity of what the sun, moon, and stars have done from the foundation of the world, that anybody can test and prove now. But what was Egypt famous for? Yes, Egypt was famous for measuring shadows and portions of darkness with their equinox, their vernal equinox, just like pagans have done all through time, and just as the archaeology evidence proves to this very day. Please, folks, there's a reason why the prophet Ezekiel, known as Ezekiel today, chapter 29, verse 19, wrote the following: "Therefore, thus said the Master YaHUaH, see, I am giving the land of Mitzrayim," which was Egypt, "to Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel." This whole system that was created in Egypt of intercalation and starting the year falsely with their obelisks was passed over to Babel, which was then in turn passed over to the second Babylon in Rome. Remember, this obelisk was brought to Rome from the Emperor Caligula. And if you understand the architecture of Rome and Vatican Square, it is a keyhole, and at the center of the keyhole is this misconception and non-scriptural belief of an improper start of the year and an improper start of a daytime period. This keyhole is the doorway to the pits and gates of hell. But you're not going to convince somebody in a 365-day calendar club, 364-day calendar club, and as you can see now, subsequently, in a 360-day calendar club. They're all in bed with Rome. Yes, indeed, regrettably, all roads do lead to Rome. And take a look at the writings of Abraham, because you will not find it a coincidence that it states the following: "We journeyed slowly for their sake of the women and children, and we journeyed not upon the Sabbath day, nor upon any of the set apart days. For we though it better to worship the Almighty Father of lights according to the pattern of continuity of heaven from the sun, moon, and stars, than to proceed rapidly on our way. And we did know that YaHUaH prospered us in our journey and protected us from the power of all of our enemies, because we did loyally serve him and worship before his throne according to the celestial pattern. That pattern produces continuity from the foundation of the world, which is a word known as tamid. But again, most people do not want to accept that the perfect gifts that we can test and prove from above here and now were installed from the foundation of the world. So, pretty simple in regards to these two criteria to prove both scripturally and astronomically what exists. Again, the name YaHUaH means I am he who is self-existent. Take a look at all the people that attack that name and that belief of self-existence. Why people have trouble with what exists, like the sun, moon, and stars, and what it does from the past all the way up to today, is beyond me personally, because I enjoy hanging out with Bereans that get up in the morning to test and prove what exists from the self-existent one. Why are so many getting up every morning to do their best to disprove the self-existent one and what he provides? Yes, what exists. Why do people do that? But that's another topic. So now, that topic actually exists in Criteria 3 on the non-scriptural prophetic 360-day calendar mindset, and why it's so troublesome. Because it's based on presumption, placebos, and posse prophecy. Please allow me to explain. Because it runs rampant in the 360-day calendar club movements. As an example, as you all recall the big fuss about the Mayan calendar a few years back, which anyone, again, can go to a museum and actually research with the archaeological evidence, you'll quickly learn that that calendar was associated to 360 YaHUaH, which equated to 7,200 days, which had an association to 144,000 days. And everybody in the 360-day calendar club movement that was aware of this went to the races. But none of them went to the archaeological evidence to find out the outer wheel of that calendar, which had 365 teeth representing what existed in the past, that they were bound by 365 days on a solar cycle, just like Hanok talked about in more detail. But again, why would 360-day calendar club movements use any of the archaeological evidence? It doesn't fit their paradigm. As a result, they don't trust what the sun, moon, and stars have provided since the foundation of time. So, make a long story short, it does provide a great intent and purpose of making great movies, creating great clickbait on all of the World Wide Web, and it does produce some great discussion and opportunities of extremism and fear, but at the end of the day, it's nothing more than chaos engineering, the art of breaking things on purpose, and to control the minds of others. It does what it does, and it's being regrettably extremely successful at doing just that. So again, presumption, placebos, and posse prophecy is not going to go away anytime soon, as regrettable as it is. So, these laws have not vanished. The laws of the sun, moon, and stars, which are continual from the past, from the foundation of the world, up to today, here and now, which we can test and prove with film and photograph footage, is backed up by the prophet YaHUaH chapter 31, verses 35 through 36. Again, most of the 360-day calendar club movements wield their club in the prophetic circles of fear-mongering. As an example, they do not consider that the counts from the prophet Daniel and YaHUaH, the emissary, are actually inserted into what the sun, moon, and stars actually do today. So as an example, let's take the 1260 and 1290 day count to see if they actually work in the sun, moon, and star movements, the laws of those sun, moon, and stars set at the foundation of the world. Again, continual is all about continuity, tamid. It's an adverb. It's to stretch out the sun, moon, and stars and their movements and what we can test and prove all through time. Because many of them say a 365.25 solar cycle, oh, that just doesn't work. The math doesn't fit. So let's take a look if that's true. So for folks that actually number their days and keep great records of it, will be fully aware that if you number the day after the first day of Abib, announced by the full moon ruling with specific stars for Abib, you will indeed get 1,290 days, all the way up to the last great day, the last day of all the continual festival cycle within a certain time period, which is in the 7th month, the 22nd day. That happens year after year after year, that anyone on their very own can go outside and test and prove in creation for their very same selves, if you will. That's the 1290 day count. The 2300 day count, which is continual, the Father of Lights ensures that his laws produce continuity. So same system, day after the first day of the month of Abib, counting all the way to Shavuot with these two witnesses here that we have. So the way the sun, moon, and stars operate here and now, like they did with these two criteria, do indeed fit the prophetic writings of the prophet Daniel, let alone the emissary of YaHUaH in Revelation. But how many examples do we have from the 360-day calendar club movements that create disorder and chaos because of presumption, placebos, and a posse prophecy mindset? We have many examples, don't we? But these examples are here so that we have patience and a sincerity through scriptural love to help these folks stay away from this chaos and disorder. We have many examples just based on these two witnesses. And those examples regrettably existed in these types of examples. And I, as a Berean, am very thankful for an individual by the name of Emmett, and also Wayne, and especially QC and her husband for exposing my wife and I to all of this activity of disorder, chaos, and the state of confusion from 20 years ago. And they have shared with us their scriptural studies and how this type of mindset exists. And it's an angry mindset, because if you disagree with them, they take out scriptural passages like, oh, you're going to perish because of lack of knowledge. And all of them do it in a very, very violent verbal manner. And in some cases, regrettably, we have witnessed physically as well. So we have an opportunity here through the fruit of the Spirit to help these folks so that they don't create fear-mongering, so that we can get back to what the sun, moon, and stars actually do with their laws that were set from the foundation of the world. So again, this mindset is corrupt. And again, we don't judge it. It's not our right. At the end of the day, we're here to share what the sun, moon, and stars actually do, to forecast it out and then get outside and test and prove those forecasts so that this type of mindset will hopefully go away. But we are aware that it won't, which leads us to the fourth point in this part of the presentation. Because you're going to hear, if you not have already heard, the horrific future 360-day calendar proposals and why they exist, all based on chaos engineering and control from a financial standpoint. So, if you haven't heard already, just search why there are massive proposals to institute a financial 360-day calendar. It already exists, but it needs to be resolved in its structure for it to happen worldwide. So you'll see many articles, this one from Forbes, why they're demanding to have a financial 360-day calendar, and why the intention is all about the money system. If you go to Wikipedia, the 360-day calendar is a method of measuring durations used in financial markets, so it already exists. It is based on merging the three major calendar systems into one complex clock, with the 360-day year derived from the average year of the lunar and the solar, rounding to 360, taking away. A 360-day year consists of 12 months of 30 days each. So to derive such a calendar from the standard Gregorian calendar, they're still tied to the mother of all movements, and certain days are skipped, taken away. Example, the 27th of June on the Gregorian calendar would be the 4th of July in the USA. This is all about control. But why? How does it affect the money system? So again, it's already in place. If you go to this website, it's about re-educating the masses on the real estate financial modeling systems. Now, if you know about 2008, did the housing market and the real estate financial system create order and peace in the world, or did it create massive chaos and disorder? Up until 2008, it was very difficult to discuss Revelation and the three witnesses in the Book of Revelation about how the world's financial system would come down in 1 hour. You couldn't discuss that with anyone. You'd be laughed at. But after 2008, the housing market crisis, everyone figured out that, Revelation chapter 18 is extremely possible, because the world was 23 hours away from a complete and utter financial meltdown. So now you can actually have discussions with people in business, in financial market institutions, and they know it's real. It is possible, if you will. Again, it is alive and well in the commercial real estate lenders commonly calculating loans in three ways under the 360 system. And this is what they want. They want one system under a 360 model, because the interest rate system works really well. And think about it. The system of borrowing and loaning money, yes, the non-scriptural system of usury, is something that Rome, the second Babylon, ensures their timing piece is associated to. Remember, this is one of the most wealthy organizations on earth because of an interest system. And let's talk about that a little bit further. Because everyone on the World Wide Web has tapped into interest, let alone requesting donations. This is how this beast survives. And many that produce calendars on the web have tapped into that with PayPal, with the QR code, and the world is going to go to a 360 system. Again, the sun, moon, and stars are free. This is a further opportunity to love your neighbor, to share with them. We are not to request donations of any kind, let alone financial, for any type of scriptural work, let alone calendation. This is an opportunity for all of those listening in this presentation, for these folks to help them out. They're placing themselves in danger. They don't need to do this. But again, I know people that have given $25,000 to one of these particular sites, and I know people that have given way more, and it's not necessary. You can number your days with the sun, moon, and stars without the help of any human being that is saying to you today, show me the money. Cha-ching, it's not part of numbering our days, and we can get rid of it very quickly. At the end of the day, the three perfect witnesses of light from above work in perfect harmony to tell time, more specifically the appointed times of YaHUaH, and YaHUaH teaches us to number our days. Not me, not any worldwide institution, nobody. So, this system does not change and has no intention of having a shadow of turning in the future. So these are the four criteria, and there is way more. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And finally, the sun, moon, and stars, and how the moon rules with the stars, blows the 360-day calendar club movement out of the water because it's man-made. This produces, the sun and stars produce a 364 cycle based on the 365 and a quarter day solar year. And the math adds up day in and day out through a true scriptural year. So again, do we trust in YaHUaH with all of our heart, the self-existent one, with what he provided, with what exists today from the foundation of time? Or do we lean on our own understanding and other people, and then, regrettably, some people give donations for it? It's crazy. So, that is the 360-day calendar club high-level presentation in regards to being still associated to Rome in so many ways. But what about the 354-day calendar club movement as it relates to this category that we're going over? So again, this 354-day calendar club movement is again associated to the mother of all movements. Let's explore that now. A lunar calendar only is a calendar based on monthly cycles of the moon phases, known as synodic months or lunations, in contrast to solar calendar only models, whose annual cycles are based only directly on the solar year. So let's review this a little further. We can find this especially in what is known as Islamic calendars, quantified or identified as the Hijri calendar, known as the Lunar Hijri calendar in English, as the Islamic, Muslim, or Arabic calendar, which is a lunar calendar, again consisting of 12 lunar months in a year, or 354 or 355 days. It is used to determine the proper days of Islamic holidays and rituals. Yes, once again, traditions of men, such as the annual period of fasting and the proper time for the Hajj. In almost all countries where the predominant religion is Islam, the civil calendar is Gregorian. Again, tied to the mother of all movements into the monetary financial system. They just can't let it go. So again, most people are shocked to find out that even the Islamic calendar is associated to Babylon, because the Babylonian New Year was astronomically the first visible crescent after the vernal equinox. Are we seeing the pattern here? We just can't let go, can we? Everyone is tied to the second Babylon in some shape, form, or manner. And again, we do not have to be a Nimrod. We're not obligated to follow a Nimrod. We're not obligated. But everyone just can't let it go. So again, he made the moon for appointed times, and from new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to to worship before me. Even the Islamic calendar doesn't follow the sun, moon, and stars. They don't do it. So it is a empirical and etymological fact that crescent and conjunction moons are not new moons. And the scripture reveals this. Because one, not one scriptural verse shares that a watchman on a wall was tasked and are assigned to identify the first visible crescent moon. Number two, if you search for the Hebrew word for crescent, you'll find in the Strong's Concordance that the one Hebrew word pertaining to the crescent moon is Saharan. Saharan is defined as moon and crescent. Saharan occurs 3 times in Scripture, as we can see in these 3 scriptural passages as laid out here. Number 3, most that are aware of the Hebrew word Saharan in these 3 scriptural verses right here soon realize that in proper context, this information provides a witness that the crescent moon leads to whoring and death. Yes, these 3 scriptural passages refer to the crescent moon as being associated to whoring and death. Please read them. So, the other item of a 354 cyclical calendar is that it ignores Job chapter 38, verse 32, like the other calendar clubs do as well. So, this is very easy to prove as being highly dysfunctional. And if you read about the Hijri calendars back in time, they were forced to intercalate because their year really ran out of sync with what the sun, moon, and stars actually do, and it caused massive chaos and disorder in their agricultural cycle of harvest, and people started to starve. So again, if you do not trust the order of what the sun, moon, and stars has set out from the foundation of time, it will indeed cause chaos and disorder, and thus why they are as well forced to intercalate. So again, there is always pain, chaos, and disorder when folks lean on their own understanding and do not trust in YaHUaH with all their heart. So, based on the scriptures, we are not in any shape, form, or manner judging any of these 365, 364, 360, and or 354 day calendar club movements. All we are doing is sharing how the mother of all movements has been so successful in influencing everyone on earth to ignore that the moon has been made for appointed times, and that we can indeed worship here and now from new moon to new moon and from Sabbath to Sabbath, because the sun, moon, and stars came into being from the foundation of the world. Those laws of the sun, moon, and stars remain intact from the foundation of the world, as we have just talked about. Again, we can shout out hallelujah that the moon and stars do indeed rule by night, and that YaHUaH, our Father of lights, and his kindness is indeed everlasting. It wasn't for a certain set apart people in the past or certain people here and now. This kindness was everlasting, just like the Sabbath was an eternal covenant forever for all believers. But regrettably, the mother of all movements, right from Egypt into Babylon, into the second Babylon of Rome, ensures that this is not recognized here and now. So, on the celestial clock and calendar of YaHUaH, he is in complete control, and no man intercalates what he provides as pertaining to the laws, which are the movements, the continuity of the sun, moon, and stars, all the way from the foundation of time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at all of these calendar clubs, and we just reviewed category 1. So we're going to go into other categories throughout the remaining part of this study, and we're going to move on to category 2. We are going to go quite quickly as there are 11 more categories. So please stop the video at any time to really research this out for yourself. And as always, we look forward to critiques and further information on what you may have gleaned. So let's get started. Again, starting with the sun, moon, and stars, those three perfect witnesses of light from above, with whom there is no change nor shadow of turning. The scriptural witnesses of light over and above the greater light, the sun, and the lesser light, the moon, is critical as we go through the rest of this scriptural study. Anyone can take a camera and take film and photograph footage of how these scriptural witnesses of light with the stars are in full and complete alignment with the sun and moon. Anyone can test and prove the counts of what all three of these perfect witnesses of light do scripturally, as written in these examples as well. So again, let's get into category 2 with Bereshith, Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 16, and back to Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 35 through 36. Because in category 1, we did an excellent job on how all of these calendar clubs had to intercalate. It's a fact. And why it's a fact is because they're adding or taking away. And as we have already covered, the definition of intercalate or intercalation is to insert something, such as a day in a calendar. And in chemistry, it's the insertion of things that they shouldn't insert into certain things that exist as well. So let's keep this in mind for the rest of the categories, because YaHUaH provides laws, and these laws don't change. Why so many say they do, again, is a problem. It's extremely problematic. So, category 2 reconfirms that the very first page of Scripture is ignored. So let's get into category 3. Psalms or Tehillim chapter 8 verse 3 and Psalms chapter 136 verse 9. Let's talk about that for a moment in greater detail. So, my eyes have gone before the night watches to study your word. In Psalms chapter 8 verse 3, for I see your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have established. How many people study all of the scriptural stars and how they work in alignment with the moon, night after night, year after year, or month after month, if you will? How many people do this? And it's starting to happen. Some people are taking more of an interest, all the way up to the fourth watch, which is the true day start at the dawn, first light, because this is where all the action happens, where you still can see the stars. If you start your day at sunrise, you lose out on some of the scriptural writings. The moon and stars do indeed rule by night, for his kindness is everlasting. How many people rob themselves of that kindness? And as well, Hanok basically stated from his 7 witnesses of light the very same thing. On the first day she is called new moon, for on that day the light rises upon her. So if you do study the full moon as new moon, you'll know that the night before a new moon day, the light does indeed rise upon her. And that, the third witness, she becomes full moon exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west. This is an astronomical fact. And from the east, she rises at night. And she rules with specific stars each and every month that repeat themselves year after year. And the moon shines the whole night through till the sun rises over against her. So again, the moon is seen over against the sun. Now, if you do study this out, outside in creation, how many people struggle 2 to 3 times a year to, and if not more, depending on where you live based on the horizon, that you can't see the moon over the sun at sunrise because of your geographical or topographical location. It's very difficult. But if you do this from the dawn to sunrise, you nail it month after month. So that anomaly that we've been talking about for the last 7 years that occurs, twice to 3 times a year doesn't affect you. Regrettably, there are those that don't study this out, both in Scripture and with the existing tools here and now, let alone outside in creation, with all of the locations on Earth, to find out how important these 7 witnesses of light actually are and how they can actually be tested and proven with the stars and the sun. But anyways, great scriptural passage if you know how to break it out and utilize it. So again, Psalms 136 verse 9 and the chapter 8 verse really brings to light something else that Hanok talked about. And on the 15th day of every scriptural month, Hanok said in chapter 78 verse 8, that the moon and all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th. So if you do number all of your days, starting from right to left, here's an actual example, you'll start to learn that the moon, in this case, this is a midnight view, goes below the horizon, and by the 15th day, it's gone. It does not rule the night with the stars at all. It's gone. It's either below or beyond the horizon, as some say. And there's no more light on the moon. It's done. So if we go back, we start to understand 2 Kepha, or Peter, chapter 1, verse 19. And we have the prophetic word made more certain, which you do well to heed as a light that shines in a dark place until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts. If you understand this, you start to understand why that the star known as the morning star does not happen on the 15th. It's a really neat observation if you do indeed test and prove all things outside in creation. And understanding Hanok 78 verse 8, you get a better understanding of the events from Dawood, or King David before he was king, as written in the book of 1 Shemuel chapter 20, verses 1 through 42. So, the third category, again, is ignored by all of these calendar day club movements, if you will, and why they have to intercalate. Again, let's talk a little bit more about Job. We've already been through it, but let's, really review this one more time. So again, if you're really getting outside there and testing and proving everything, you will be able to notice how Ursa Major moves around the North Star counterclockwise every night. And in this view, in the spring on the first day of the first month of Abib, around the second watch time period, midnight if you will, you will see Ursa Major in this position, as some say, pouring out its water, announcing the true spring, without having to use tools to identify the vernal equinox. The sun, moon, and stars do this for you. So anyways, this is the math as we already covered. And it takes all 3 witnesses of light like a wristwatch. You don't take out a minute hand or a second hand or an hour hand to tell time. This doesn't either. You use all of the measurements from the perfect witnesses of light to tell time. So we do workshops in this study, both online, using the tools, and more importantly, we get people to come outside with us and test and prove this for themselves, and it's very easy to do. So again, study the scriptural witnesses of light as it pertains to the stars. You will be very glad that you did. It provides great peace, order, and continuity. So, Job chapter 38 verse 32 is enormous, and most people don't study it out in full, scripturally, etymologically, and more regrettably, they don't get outside and test and prove it daily, because you can. So let's move on to category 5, under the scriptural passages from Devarim, or Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 1, and or Shemoth or Exodus chapter 12, verse 12. Let's take a look at those really quick, shall we? Again, let's take a look at those very quickly. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1, verses 1 through 2. Guard the month of Abib and perform the Passover to YaHUaH, your Almighty One. For in the month of Abib, YaHUaH, your Almighty One, brought you out of Mitzrayim, brought you out of Egypt. Why? Because, like the prophet Ezekiel stated, that timing piece would have been handed over to Babylon, to Nebuchadnezzar, and eventually to the second Babylon in Rome. Guard the true month of Abib. And some people don't. Some people actually do things to consciously direct you away from the first month of Abib and all of the events that the Messiah, the Mashiach, YaHUaH accomplished. They will point you away from this. So guard it. And I use this visual as a guard. I know it's the English guard, if you will, but it's a great visual to share. You got to guard it with your life because there are so many attacks on the first month of Abib in so many ways. Is disgusting. But in the Shemoth verse, chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, and YaHUaH spoke to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, this month is the beginning of months for you. It is the first month of the year. Remember, Egypt and Babylon and Rome are going to do everything to screw up, to cause chaos and disorder on the true starting point. They're going to use obelisks. They're going to influence everybody in these calendar clubs to forget about all this. And as we can see from the study, this has already been proven in great detail, scripturally, astronomically, and etymologically, let alone prophetically from the prophet YaHUaH. So keep your head up on all of this stuff. We study this out in greater detail in these scriptural studies on YouTube with a study called Why Must We All Guard the Month of Abib? And then how to guard the month of Abib with the sun, moon, and stars. So that's category 5 at a very high level. Category 6 is based on the scriptural passages of YaHUaH, or Leviticus chapter 23, verse 7, Bemidbar, or the Book of Numbers, chapter 28, verse 18, and Shemoth, or Exodus chapter 12, verse 16, which all of these calendar clubs do not recognize first fruits, the 16th day of the first month of Abib, as a Sabbath. Let's get into that a little bit. Because if you study the 16th day of the first month of Abib, let alone a 16th day in any scriptural month, is always the first day of a third week scripturally. And as we can see in the scriptures from YaHUaH and Numbers, on the first day you have a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work, because this was a wave sheaf offering where the people attended a Sabbath at the temple. And you can read this in great detail in YaHUaH, or Leviticus chapter 23, verse 9. You then shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest, and the priest shall wave the sheaf before YaHUaH for your acceptance. This happened on the first day of a third week in the first month of Abib, on the 16th day. And again, we know this because on the morrow after the Sabbath, after the high Sabbath on the 15th day, the priest waves it on the 16th day. And on that day, the 16th day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as a burnt offering to YaHUaH and its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to YaHUaH. Remember, most people that do not number their days with the sun, moon, and stars, regrettably, can never match up to the counts of Moshe properly. And as we know, the taught ones came to the tomb after the Sabbath at the end of the 16th day. The 16th day light time period, and here's the 16th day night time period. There's a separation with evening. And they showed up just before the dawn, when a true day starts, after the Sabbath. And we can read about this in the other emissaries. And we cover this in other YouTube videos entitled Celestial Signs of Passover and Fruits on 2021 Plus. And you can actually photograph this sun, moon, and star sign annually. And it's really, really a cool sign before the dawn. It's really, really fabulous. It's YaHUaH, if you will. But again, most people rob themselves, regrettably, unconsciously, of that joy. So that's category 6. You can recognize first fruits. And it is indeed a Sabbath. On to category 7, which focuses on YaHUaH, Leviticus chapter 23, verses 16 through 17. And again, Bebin Bar, or Numbers, chapter 28, verse 26. Shavuot is a summer festival, as it always was. And here and now, it's an appointed time. But regrettably, the calendar clubs who intercalate don't realize this. Some do. But Shavuot's all about 2 tablets. It's all about the commandments, the covenant, 2 tablets, the 2 loaves of fine flour that can only be harvested in the summer months after the summer solstice. It's about 2 fasts, and it's about 2 counts. And as we can see from Leviticus chapter 23, verse 15 through 16, you count 7 Sabbaths after first fruits. After the 16th day of the first month, you shall count for yourself 7 completed Sabbaths. And it continues until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, you then count 50 days. So we've covered this in great detail in other scriptural study videos, and it falls in line with the Book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 23, about the new moon days of remembrance, how they fall properly in each of their divisions, which those moons rule with the stars, and they show up after the spring equinox, after the summer solstice, after the autumn equinox, and after the winter solstice. And as we said, Hanok knew a year, solar-wise, was 365 and a quarter. He knew that the sun and stars then, with a 365 and a quarter day solar year, would produce 364 days of time. And he knew the moon produced a 354-day cycle. All 3 witnesses of light, when combined, work in perfect harmony to tell time. He knew all of this. But how many calendar clubs celebrated Shavuot before the summer solstice this year and every other year in the past? Again, associated to Rome. And as we know, the Messiah, the anointed one of Yah, the Mashiach, YaHUaH, stated during the spring festival of Passover, after the spring equinox, well after, that there would be 4 months until the summer harvest came. The 2 loaves and the wine, if you know about this agriculturally, can only happen after a summer solstice. So if you're one of those folks out there that are watching this, have been deceived and duped into doing Shavuot before the summer solstice, have no worries. The sun, moon, and stars will rescue you into the proper time period as it relates to the writings of Jubilees, and based on the teachings from our only teacher, the Mashiach, or Messiah, the anointed one of Yah, yes, YaHUaH, the one who cried out Shua, cried out to his Father for his deliverance, as all righteous ones must do. So again, Shavuot, of course, is fully aligned to the annual agricultural harvest, which is fully aligned to Moshe's writings that represent the spiritual, scriptural harvest cycle, again aligned to creation, what exists. And we can go outside in creation as we have done with these examples. This year we've seen the sign, sun, the moon at dawn, and those stars that everyone on earth could see for the sign of Shavuot, like we seen in 2020, and like we tested and proven and verified in 2019 and subsequent years. This is why we trust it. So again, we covered this in this video, Pagan Pentecost or Scriptural Shavuot, and last year with Hallelujah for the 5th new moon fast and Shavuot. And if further interested in other details, scripturally, astronomically, etymologically, historically, archaeologically, and as well etymologically, this video numbering our days to the fifth new moon in YaHUaH and new wine of YaHUaH and the fifth new moon based on Acts chapter 2 verses 1 through 15 may be of further interest to you. So again, that's category 7. YaHUaH, without doubt, is in the summer time period, here and now. And thus why the fall or autumn, Yom Teruah, starts after the autumn equinox, here and now as in the past, throughout the foundation of time. And we can go to the scriptural passages of Tehillim, meaning praises, or Psalms chapter 81 verse 3, and Bedman-Bar, Numbers chapter 29 verse 1. And again, all those folks that don't believe New Moon Day starts the first day of every month, you're missing out on the fact that Psalms 81 verse 3, it states, blow the ram's horn at the time of the new moon, at the full moon on our festival day, backed up by a second witness from Numbers chapter 29 verse 1, and in the 7th month on the first day of the month you have a set apart gathering, and if you read further, it's a festival of blowing trumpets. So again, right out of the get-go, people are way off base if they're doing this here and now. And as I do this video, narrated anyways, people are actually celebrating trumpets and, worse yet, Sukkot way too early because they're not aligned to the sun, moon, and stars, and they're not even aligned to the numbering of days as Moshe presented. So, you can read this in other scriptural verses. There's so much evidence scripturally and astronomically. Again, a shame that most people have been robbed of this. And as well, even Hanok knew in chapter 79, verse 4, that from the first day of the first month all the way to the first day of the 7th month, there's a count of 177 days on the first half of a 354-day cycle. The math works, and if you understand how the count works, with a 365 and a quarter year, as he talked about, you'll understand the patterns annually of this 177-day count, and you'll start to be introduced to the 7-year Shemitah cycle and how that works, let alone the 50-year Jubilee cycle. Very, very enlightening. So again, the Feast of Trumpets this year is after the autumn equinox, after Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021, this pagan year timeline. But a lot of people right now are still in the summertime period, and they're claiming that it's Feast of Trumpets, let alone some have already done Sukkot. Very alarming, extremely alarming. They're not even aligned to the agricultural cycle, let alone the spiritual, scriptural harvest cycle with Moshe's writings, let alone what the sun, moon, and stars provide to tell time. We covered this in the true Tekufah, trumpets and the true turn of the year up to Sukkot, and another video, Trumpets, a Day of Remembrance and Fasting, if interested. So again, very easy to test and prove this category. We do workshops in this as well, outside in creation. And regrettably, here in Canada, there's another quarantine with the events of COVID. You need a passport to get into from the U.S. into Canada and from abroad. So the workshops that we have scheduled for outside this year, we'll keep everybody posted and see what we can do to get together for that. So going to category 9, again, back to the Bereshith, the very first page of Scripture here and now, the Moshe accounts. We cannot stress enough that the sun, moon, and stars, astronomically, are fully aligned here and now as they were in the past, and will be so in the future, with the scriptural witnesses of light, including the stars, obviously, that anyone can test and prove outside. The very first page of Scripture, that foundational piece, gives us the key to success for the upcoming feasts. And regrettably, calendar clubs take their club, bash you over the head, and say that's not true. And it's regrettable. It will continue to happen. But again, we're not here to judge anyone. Our job is to test and prove and share this information in the best manner that we can out of love with the fruit of the Spirit. So category 9 is an opportunity here and now to do just that. Into category 10, we talked about this already, the prophetic count and alignment here and now from the prophet Daniel and the emissary YaHUaH, John, in the book of Revelation, and many other prophets. We want to stress this again because all of these calendar clubs that are still imprisoned by the mother of all movements, Rome, the second Babylon, have not seen this great opportunity on how the prophetic counts match with the sun, moon, and stars here and now, year after year. And as a result, they take away from this great information, including the 1335, which is a great study, and we cover in the Celestial Clock and Calendar of YaHUaH workshops, and we can't stress enough, enjoy this. This is great learning, and so many Bereans are helping us with this in their particular locations with film and photograph footage year after year. It has been such a pleasure and dream come true for us to have this gift to study with Bereans all over Earth that want to get away from this movement and all of these other calendar clubs that in most cases are unconscious. They don't realize they're still associated to them. Regrettably, there are those conscious ones that do, just looking for money and other reasons of control. Okay, so that was category 10. In category 11, the Book of Jubilees. We want to review that one more time because many people believe the books of YaHUaH, Jubilees, etc. are non-canonical. But again, if you can use them out in creation as evidence to test and prove what actually exists, why not hold on to them? I've even heard one person say, let alone many others, well, the scripture doesn't say that there is, an autumn. It only talks about summer and winter. But meanwhile, you can go outside and test and prove all 4 seasons. You can test and prove all 4 divisions of any year in creation, agriculturally, let alone seasonally. But, we're not dealing sometimes with folks that want to test and prove everything. They have another paradigm and regrettably sometimes another purpose and intent that is not scriptural. And with the fruit of the Spirit is an opportunity not to judge, but to truly help in sincerity and scriptural love. So again, we can get outside and test and prove this. And if you're successful, bring everyone outside you can to test and prove how the agricultural cycle is aligned to the 4 divisions of the year, as the Book of Jubilees stated, and is definitely aligned to the sun, moon, and stars that you can actually take photograph and film footage of. Again, the agricultural cycle is a beautiful thing. Learn it. You will be extremely glad that you did, along with how YaHUaH's writings fully align to the 4 divisions of the year. And if you understand YaHUaH and this count, this 177-day count, and how it works to Yom Teruah, then you'll understand why the agricultural cycle does what it does, and you'll understand this count on how it works and how it provides some further insight into a 7-year Shemitah cycle and the 50-year Jubilee cycle, which, as we all can plainly see based on the evidence, all of these calendar clubs, as influenced by the mother of all calendar clubs and movements, rob us of understanding. Yes, there is so much chaos and disorder in understanding the simple scriptural 7-year Shemitah cycle and 50-year Jubilee cycle, isn't there? But does this indeed have to be the case? This leads us to our final and 12th category of this very lengthy study. And again, it is only high level. we've only touched the tip of the iceberg of what we cover in the celestial clock and calendar workshops of YaHUaH. The 12th category revolves around the 3 feasts or appointed times that all males were instructed and are guided to come to Jerusalem: Abib, Shavuot, and Yom Teruah, into Sukkot. So make a long story short, the renewed covenant and the renewed covenant counts support this as well. And most people are robbed of that, as we gave the 84 Sabbath witnesses of the emissary Shaul. So everything is in alignment. But again, in category 12, the crux of the disorder and chaos, the control problematic issues, are that people take more time to disprove the self-existent one and his name, and as such take more time to disprove what the sun, moon, and stars actually do all through time. It's a false paradigm, and we'll be dealing with that obviously until the end of the age of man. And for some folks that do the full and complete scriptural prophetic timeline, some of that will regrettably still exist in the millennium. And our only teacher, the Messiah or Mashiach, YaHUaH, will deal with that. So have no delusions. We are going to deal with these false paradigms for some time. So again, this 12th category is just basically a summary of why it's so important to hang on to and to trust the very first page of Scripture, and that we can trust it here and now as well as others did from the foundation of the world. Again, please take the time to get outside to study all of this, especially the scriptural stars. And there are some now taking an interest in it and taking their cameras outside with their forecasts and filming and photographing what can be seen year after year as it relates to the spring feasts, the summer feasts, and the fall feasts. Hallelujah. Again, calendar clubs will not promote that methodology because the mother of all movements do not promote that methodology. They are aligned, as we have seen throughout this study. So again, get outside. Take the time to truly understand what the Messiah, YaHUaH, yes, the Mashiach, our only teacher, stated about the 4 months. You do not have to be part of the chaos. You do not have to help others with the art of breaking things purposely. You do not have to join a club. The truth of the fact or matter remains that you don't have to wield the same weapons that these clubs do. You can get outside with the sun, moon, and stars and trust YaHUaH with all your heart. You don't have to lean on the understanding of clubs. You don't have to get on those roads that lead to Rome. You don't have to do it. Again, you do not have to participate in the chaos. You can free yourself. The truth indeed will set you free. You do not have to do what some others do. For some reason, they feel a need to control people, just like this beast does, and they do it through various types of calendar clubs that are all associated to the money system and or practice of it in requests in some shape, form, or manner. Again, we do not have to oppose the Almighty Father of Lights, which means to place over against something so as to provide resistance, to place opposite or against something, to offer resistance to. We don't have to buck what the sun, moon, and stars do here and now. We don't have to defy the laws of the sun, moon, and stars. We don't have to fight, repel, resist, or withstand what they were created to do in laws since the foundation of time. We do not have to participate with those calendar clubs who think they can change times and laws of those sun, moon, and stars, and as such find themselves practicing intercalation, inserting something into a calendar, or worse yet, with the biological definition of what the world is experiencing today on the pain and chaos when man takes things into their own hands. Again, we can trust the Tamid, the celestial pattern, since the foundation of the world, just like Abraham did. Just like the emissary Shaul knew about the esteem of the sun, the esteem of the moon, and another esteem of the stars, because star differs from star in esteem, or value, or usage in utilization in telling time as it relates to the patterns. Again, it's not what we think we know, it's what we can scripturally prove in creation. We can test and prove all of what the sun, moon, and stars, yes, the full light, the three witnesses of light, as per all of the scriptural passages, let alone what the agricultural cycle proves in creation year after year. We don't have to be part of this non-scriptural system. We don't have to think like a Nimrod. There is no point. And as such, we do not have to be imprisoned by all of Earth's calendar clubs that are still associated to the mother of all movements. Again, we do not have to be recorded in the Hall of Shame. Again, the laws have not vanished from before YaHUaH. Yashriel has not ceased from being a nation before YaHUaH. Just like the Sabbath was for all generations, just like the name was for all generations, these laws were for all generations. There will be those that will state otherwise. We have to get over that. It's an opportunity to show how we have improved in the process of the fruit of the Spirit. To love and to love scripturally in a sincere manner in helping those that promote and oppose the Father of lights and what he provides. Because we can be like the taught ones and get outside before the dawn at first light to study what the moon and stars do and rule by night, and to prove why YaHUaH, our Father of lights, and his kindness is indeed everlasting. So, as always, we call upon the name which is above all names, that these scriptural studies provide value to you and your loved ones. So until next time, may YaHUaH keep and guard you and your loved ones, and may the Messiah YaHUshua be in everything we say and do. All the best, everyone.